Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Owl Countdown. This is week 3, which means we're looking at some pretty cool teams this week. Not that we haven't for the last 2, but I'm very excited to talk about these 3. So we're going to be starting off with the Shanghai Dragons, the Houston Outlaws, and then the London Spitfire. And being British, that means I have eternal hopium for the London Spitfire. My name is Jake, and I'm really excited to do this one today. I've also shaved my face, because why the hell not? Oh dear. Right then. If you guys are watching this live currently in my Twitch chat, unfortunately it's in YouTube style, so if I don't respond to you, I do apologize, but I will do at the end, so it's all good. It'll all come back around, I promise. Anyway, let's get underway with this. No hobbling around with this today. Let's just simply get on with it. So I'm going to move us through to this screen here. Let's get started with the Shanghai Dragons, man. I've been putting off talking about Shanghai for a good few weeks now because I've just been wanting to let some other teams maybe share some of the spotlight before we go into, let's be honest, what is essentially the Overwatch League. Probably the... How do I put this? I think it would be safe to say that the Dragons are the favourites to win the championship this season again. I wouldn't blame anyone that thinks they are. I simply just think that they are a cut above every single other team right now. And my notes reflect this, honestly. So let's take a look at who they've got. Who did they lose? What did they change? And the short answer is very little. Well, I mean, why would you? Why would you change a championship-winning roster that was incredibly successful? So obviously in 2021, they didn't just win the Overwatch League. They also won the Summer Showdown and the June Joust. Now, those are obviously smaller tournaments, but once again, we're entering a format where there are going to be regional tournaments. And actually, back in 2020, they won the May Melee, and they also won the Summer Showdown in their respective region. Actually, it might have been the Countdown Cup. I remember. Either way, they won 2 from the APAC region. And since they're dropping down to, again, 7 in APAC, I feel like the 2022 season is almost mirroring the model that we had in 2020. So this bodes well for Shanghai. They've already been here. They've done it before. Yes, there is a big tournament where they're going to be traveling probably to NA to face a lot of the other teams. But for the most part, everything's going to be operating quite similarly. So I already from the offset, I believe that Shanghai have got quite a leg up on people. They're already very experienced with this kind of stuff. So let's take a look at who they kept and who they got rid of. This is probably the roster that had the least amount of changes, which is really good for me because it didn't take me very long to go through it all. But I've already mentioned this in my Guangzhou video, but Molly and Develop both leave this team and they go over to Guangzhou. So I'm not surprised by this. I think Molly is an interesting pickup. I think Molly's fantastic, but they didn't get enough game time on Shanghai. Neither did Develop. Develop simply came in to fill the position that DM had left when DM retired, and they've been a bench warmer. They've both been bench warmers. So, you know, they did their job. I think they did their job fine. I think they'll probably fare a little bit better on Guangzhou, but we'll simply have to see. In response to that, Shanghai bring in Bebe. Bebe spent most of his time on the Hangzhou Spark in his first couple of seasons in the league, and then last year was on the Washington Justice, and arguably I don't think had a very, very good season. Serviceable, yes, but not a great season, and it's clear to me that Bebe is just coming in here to fill a support role. They're just coming in here to fill in the hole that's on the bench, really. And I think if you're Bebe and you get carried to a championship, then you're going to be happy with that, so it's not really that much of a problem, really. You know, it's a fine pickup, you know, fills a hole, that's fine. The rest of the roster. Iziaki and Lee Jae-gon are still in support. Okay, they're cracked. Great. I know we have Horu here, who's on DPS, but Horu's not going to get a game in with Fletter and Lip sat in that DPS line. And in 5v5, where we're going to be seeing, go and check out the 5v5 analysis that I just did on San Francisco versus O2, because what we're seeing is a lot of Tracer dominance, hit scan coming a little bit back into play with Cassidy. Well, that's at least from what 5v5's workshop mode is showing us at the moment. And obviously there's going to be a host more heroes. And let's be real here, Fletter and Lip can do everything. They can do everything and anything. They're perfect. You're absolutely fine with these two leading the line. And then they keep Fate and Void as well. Obviously, dropping down one tank is interesting. They're not going to be fielded together anymore, but individually, the two of them are incredibly talented. So if you're a Shanghai fan, there's a million things sat here on this roster that you can be happy about. However, I wouldn't be doing my job correctly if I didn't sit here and have a couple of questions about this, because this off-season for Shanghai has glaring similarities with the way that San Francisco conducted business, in my opinion, last season. Obviously, San Francisco made a lot of wholesale changes, more so than what Shanghai have made, but the key factor that happened with San Francisco was they had a lot of coaching changes. They let go of quite a lot of their coaches in the form of, they let go of Junkbuck, they let go of Arachne, they let go of 9K last season, and they all kind of branched out to different teams to try and strike it on their own, you know, not really being in Krusty's shadow, not working under him. And Shanghai have had actually a slightly similar approach here. So they've actually let go of 2 coaches. They've let go of J-Feel, and they've also let go of Dongsu. Now, I personally don't know the impact that they had on this team, but they've both left, and I believe one of them, I'm pretty sure it's J-Feel, has actually ended up on a rival team. Let's take a look here. Yeah, J-Feel has ended up on Chengdu. Obviously, Chengdu are probably the most competitive rival that you have right now if you're Shanghai. So that already feels, in a sense, a little bit dangerous. They brought in 2 more. They have brought in 2 other coaches. I believe they are cool. Well, they'll say here. They brought in, Damon and Pavane. That's fine. Cool. Excellent. You've got 2 people to fill the roles that were missing. I've heard quite a lot that Moon is more of like a player manager rather than too much of a coach. He's sort of like there just letting the players, not letting the players do what they want, you know, but he builds a style and builds a roster around, you know, the ability of his players, you know, in the way that they like to play. So it's, in my opinion, you shouldn't really have a reason to worry, but the comparison, you have to draw the comparison between Shock and Shanghai, you know, if you're coming into this season. That coaching thing, we don't really know how much of that really led to Shock's, shall we say, underwhelming season in 2021, but you have to acknowledge it. So that's something that I would be just a teeny bit like, okay, keep an eye on that. But the other thing I'd like to keep an eye on with Shanghai is, I did this in 2021 and I'm going to do it again and I'm very sad about it, but we've got to keep an eye on this man here. Okay, so Fate last season proved everybody that he was a top tier main tank, and he was incredible. His work on the Wrecking Ball was fantastic. I still think he's got a really good monkey in Reinhardt. He's great. He really is great. His Orisa as well, top standard, excellent, positions himself perfectly, but there is a huge cloud, in my opinion, above Fate here. Not because I don't think he can handle the heroes from a mechanical standpoint, but because I'm slightly worried about how he's going to fare without a second tank with him. And I said this in my Toronto analysis. So I said this when we were talking about Toronto, about Muse, and how I thought Muse is mechanically gifted, but I thought he shone much better as a pair with Space. And, you know, when you're collaborating, when you're diving, when you're working with somebody else in the team. Without Void next to him, I would be worried, and I would almost predict just a little bit to see a couple of gaps in his game. I wouldn't expect that from Void. I think Void is top tier. When you're talking about the best off tanks, or just best tanks in general, Void's name comes up because he is so intelligent and mechanically gifted at this game. He knows exactly what he's doing, when and where. I very rarely saw him put a foot wrong last season, or the season before that. He is like a cut above most tanks. He's up there with, like, you know, your Harmbins of this world, but that's why I would have I'm not casting doubt onto Fate. I'm not going to sit here and say that Fate is bad. I think Fate proved all the doubters wrong last season, but I think it's something you do have to call into question just a little bit, maybe just a little bit. And if we're even saying it's a hole, it's not even a hole, it's a chink in the armor. It's the tiniest infantile chink in the armor. So I thought I'd draw attention to it. That's a concern that I personally would have, but otherwise, the Shanghai roster is just insane. And if Fate is your biggest question mark, you know, and that's not even really the biggest question mark, in my opinion, like, that's not a big question mark. I really don't want to oversell my thought that Fate might be a little bit of a wobbly one, because it's really not. But, you know, you do have to ask the question, then this team has got a lot going for it. You know, if that's it, then this team has got an absolute metric amount of talent going into the season. They have just so much going for them. I would be shocked if Shanghai didn't win anything this year. I think Shanghai are definitely going to win something again this year. Whether it be whether it be like Kickoff Clash or whether it be Summer Showdown, I do think that they will win something. I think that you have to sit here and say that Shanghai are probably one of the favorites to win the mid-season madness as well. I think they probably go to that tournament and they will probably be one of the strongest in the tournament. There's not really a conceivable way that they're not. I would have them as going in as favorites for this season, honestly. I think Fletter and Lip are going to run an absolute muck over the rest of the teams in APAC. So, yep, good old Shanghai. Honestly, cracked. Simply cracked. Okay, let's move on. Let's do another team. So, Shanghai, I always knew that they were going to be a relatively short, session. But you know who's not going to be a short session? And I'm quite excited to talk about this team. Houston. Okay, let's talk about Houston. So, Houston are one of the two teams that have never ever made it to playoffs. I said this when I was ranking each franchise for how successful they've been, and I put Houston quite low, despite their very high highs in terms of what they've done, in terms of like individual matches and maybe a tiny bit of like relative success in season 1. This team, to me, are not good. They haven't been good. And that's surprising. And I'm going to draw quite a lot on last year as a comparison here. So last year, they came into the season with an absolutely fantastic roster. I thought that Houston's roster last year was really, really, really good. And, they win their first 2 opening matches against Shock in like a 6-map series and against Fuel. Massive. Humongous for the Houston Outlaws, You've beaten 2 of your biggest rivals or 2 of the biggest teams in NA in the first week. How high is the ceiling for this team? Okay, they then lose 2 3-0s back-to-back to the Dallas Fuel in both the May Melee and the June Joust qualifiers, and then they don't even get a sniff of Hawaii. They don't even get a sniff of playoffs. They have that pretty good game, actually, against Washington Justice, was it? In the play-ins? But other than that, this team's season fell apart. It completely fell apart. It capitulated. And, they only had 1 game against Gladiators that season, but I'm using this as a reference point, right? They couldn't step to Gladiators. They had nothing on them. They got 3-0'd really badly right before coming into playoffs, and it was demoralizing watching this Houston team just fall apart. And I have to say, I'm a little bit worried about the same thing, because, again, this is a team with absolutely stacked talent. It's stacked. It's stacked to the walls, but I don't trust it. Okay, let's go through why. Let's go through why right here, okay? Let's talk about what they lose. First, because they actually lose quite a lot, okay? They choose to let go of a lot of players and not necessarily picking up replacements for some of them either. Okay, who goes out? They let go of both Dreamer and Jangu. I'm very sad about Jangu being let go. I thought Jangu had so much potential. He's decided to retire, and I am very unhappy about that. I thought his Reinhardt was absolutely phenomenal. I was very sad that he got, basically permabenched when Dreamer came in last season. And Dreamer's fine as well. Dreamer was great on Valiant. He was pretty good, I guess, on Houston. But, I would have kept Jangu, personally. But it's a shame. It's a big shame. But they let go of both of their main tanks. Okay. Starting to see a couple of amber warnings here. Amber weather warnings, as you call it. Okay. Supports. They let go of Crimzo and they let go of Juby. Okay. So I feel sorry for Juby, and I'm gonna talk about why I feel very sorry for Juby in a little bit, but I'll have to bring that up when I bring back a player they kept. So yeah. Juby goes. Unlucky, mate. Crimzo goes. He goes to Boston. Okay, unpopular opinion. I think Crimzo is actually a pretty damn good flex support. I thought he was great last season, and I thought that he shone very brightly on a team whereby you had a lot of other bright stars. So I like Crimzo. I think Crimzo is good. He is not the toppest of tiers of flex support, and I don't even know if he's like the top of the middle tier, but I like him, and I think he's good. And I still think that guy's got room to grow. I think mechanically, he's pretty good. And then they drop KSF and Hydration. Those are the only two things that when you drop them, you understand. Like KSF got very unlucky, obviously, with what happened to him on Valiant, and when he goes into to Houston, he's already playing second fiddle to, Happy, Jake, and Dante. So unlucky. And Hydration, unfortunately, the time for Hydration is over. I love Hydration. Look, listen, Season 1 Gladiators, Season 2 Gladiators, Hydration was there, but he spends a whole season on main tank for this team because Muma can't do it, and it's just a shame. But that's fair. There are better players than them now. That's just it. That simply is it. There are better players in Hydration and KSF now. Okay, who do they keep? Who do they bring in? They only keep 3 players: Dante, Piggy, and Jake. Dante, great. Piggy, really good. So I would complain far more about their main tank being dropped, both of them, if it weren't for Piggy being the one tank they keep. Piggy is bloody brilliant, and nobody can tell me otherwise. Like, this guy, if you ever watch his streams, if you ever watch him play on ladder, he can play everything. And I think he has the ability to pick it up if he can't already. I am a big fan of Piggy. I do think Piggy will be fine. Cool. Jake. I have a lot to say about Jake. So I'm going to dodge it for a little bit longer. Who do they bring in? They bring in Pelican? Holy shit. They bring in Pelican. I said this in the Atlanta one. I said this when we were talking about Atlanta. How the ever-loving hell did Atlanta let Pelican go? I know why. They were going for an American-speaking roster. But I am still shocked they let go of Pelican, the rookie of the year, and he is absolutely cracked. And this calls into questions about why they kept Dante, and I'll explain that in a minute as well. So they bring in Pelican. Amazing pickup. Iris they bring in from the Atlanta Reign. Okay. Iris and Lastro. Interesting. So their 2 marked supports right now are both flex supports, and it's Iris and Lastro. Okay, that's fine. Again, so if I'm talking about how this is like versus Crimzo, I do think Iris and Lastro are probably better than Crimzo. I think I would agree with that. And I think if you're bringing in Iris, you're probably doing it for that synergy with Pelican. But at the same time, I find this a teeny bit dodgy because there is no main support here. They dropped Juby, and there is no main support. So this is here, like most of the teams have done, to cover for that potential double flex. Okay, all right, fine. We'll trust the process for now. And then they bring in Merit. So like most weeks, I do actually end up having some footage up here. This is Merit. Merit is a hit scan player. And much like Kilo and Proper, who, again, go watch that 5v5 VOD. You'll see a lot more of them because they're now on Shock. But this O2 Blast team was sick, and the 3 DPS players were great. Merit was, for the most part, I think, behind Kilo just a little bit. Like, Prophet was always there. But he's great. This guy is a raw talent on hit scan. And it makes me realize that there was someone I forgot to talk about who left. They dropped Happy. And this is the main comparison I wanted to make for Merit, was that they dropped Happy, Happy's gone to Washington, and they pick up Merit. Okay, so I like this and I don't like this. First of all, I think that Happy is absolutely incredible. I think he's one of the best hit scan talents that is currently in the league, and I thought he had a really good season on Houston. Again, I thought he was a bright spark. I thought that he played exceptionally well when he was asked to. Okay, that's good. That he's good, so why you let him go? You bring in Merit. Merit is obviously not established. He's a non-established talent in the league, but I also believe that he has got a lot of potential. Like, I watch him in these VODs against Talon, and he just hits his shot on Cassidy. Like, he just keeps popping up in this kill feed. He's just fantastic. He's great on that Ashe. He's great on the McCree. He is a raw hit scan, born and bred talent. And I think he's a fine replacement for Happy. I mean, I personally would have kept Happy just because of his work rate, but I like this pickup anyway. I think this is suitable. But at the same time, now we have a lot of questions as a result of it. We have a lot of questions off the back of this. So there's a lot of things I don't like about this. I have talked about how good each of these pickups are, because they are. They're great pickups, and they've kept 3 great players. But I don't think this is going to mesh together, because my first glaring issue is this. Pelican is a better Tracer than Dante. I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, and that's fine. But Pelican demonstrated last year on Atlanta that he can play Tracer at a top level. At a top level. And I didn't think that Dante was on the top level last year. I think Dante is cracked on Tracer. He is. He really is. But I don't think he was at the Kevster level. I didn't think that he was at the Lip level. I didn't think he was on like the Prophet level of Tracers in the league. But Pelican was. Pelican was great. And he can flex to anything else. So you bring in Pelican, great. What does this do to Dante? Do you ask Dante to play hit scan? No, you would have either kept Happy or you play Merit on hit scan. That's why he's here. And if you're going to play, the only situation now where I see Dante getting played is when you have Pelican flex over to something else like Echo or Pharah or one of the flex heroes, and Dante comes in and plays that Tracer, and then you're reserving Merit for non-hit scan. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think hit scan's going to come back in a big way in 5v5, and then you want that flexibility, and you want a top-tier Tracer, and I believe that that's Pelican. So I'm now concerned about Dante, and I'm not saying they should have dropped Dante. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but Dante on Outlaws is a staple for staying in this team. He is almost like the face of this team, in my opinion. And so you drop Dante to the bench. There's something a little bit concerning about that, in my humble opinion. Like, look at Shanghai. We just spoke about Shanghai. Horu is their bench player. You know, there isn't really a need for Horu to come in. And I would almost say the same with Pelican and Merit. There isn't, because Pelican is like Fleder, he can do everything, and Merit is so good on all these other roles, I don't see a need for Dante to really come in that much. And his position, for me, isn't on the bench. He has to be leading the line for a star-studded roster, because that's how good Dante is. So, you know, I see this as a problem for Dante. It's probably a good thing for Outlaws to have that much competition, but I see that as a problem for Dante, and I don't know how the players' minds operate, but that, you know, being benched can sometimes get in your head. And then if you're not playing Pelican, what are you doing? If you're playing Dante over Pelican, and Pelican's not starting in this roster at any point, what are you doing? That to me doesn't make sense. So already I think that if you're Outlaws, you've got quite a few cooks in the kitchen and you're worried about that DPS selection. They're all great talent. They are all great talent, but I'm a little bit concerned how that's going to mesh. Okay, next up. Support. Support. They don't have a main support. They don't have a main support. Now, I'm aware that other teams have done this. I'm aware New York are one of these teams that have done that. They've just gone purely for, currently anyway, Myeonbong and Gangnam Gym. That's fine. Maybe one of Iris and Lastro is going to or can pick up a main support role. Like, that is a distinct possibility. But then, when I was thinking about that, I realized what they're going to do. And I'm thinking to myself, oh god, they're going to do it for a second year in a row. Jake is on this team still. Jake played Brigitte for Houston all of last season. He ended up flexing over onto Lucio all of last season. I don't think Jake should be a player on Houston Outlaws. Now, listen, I'm not ragging on Jake. I think Jake is a great player. I also think that Jake is a wonderful personality in the scene. He was an excellent caster when he was casting the game, and I also think that he's going to be a great coach one day. And that's why he shouldn't be in this team. If Jake ends up playing on DPS at any point, Houston have got this wrong. Pelican, Merit, and Dante should always be in that DPS line. Okay? Good. Heck, if they haven't picked up a main tank, I mean, as I've said, I think Piggy can do it all. I think that's their reason. But just hear me out. What if their reason is because they think, oh yeah, Jake can play it? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then my biggest problem is that they're probably going to put Jake on the Brigitte again. And maybe the Lucio again this season. Jake isn't a support player. Maybe he is now, but this guy isn't a natural born and bred support player. You know, he is intellectual. He is very clever. He knows how to play this game incredibly well, and his mechanics are still very good. But they are not at the top tier of proper main support players, you know? He's never ever going to be on that level of a skewed Brigitte or a Lige Gon or a Moth Brigitte that you need to compete for championships. And with this much talent on the roster, to not have a top tier Brigitte player after I've said in the 5v5 review that, you know, Brigitte is instrumental in keeping Tracer out because Tracer is going to be meta in this season, which is why I'm so concerned about the Dante Pelican thing. It makes no sense for you not to have a dedicated Brigitte player. I am confused. Moth was on the market. Did they blow their budget? Moth was on the market. Moth would have been great for this team. Moth would have worked so well on Outlaws. Like, this is the thing, right? I think about all these places that Moth could have gone. I think about all these teams that have been built, you know, all of these mixed rosters, these American, like, English-speaking rosters, sorry, you know, your Korean rosters, okay? And Moth could have gone into a lot of places, but the one place he would have been so good for that dynamic that he's used to on Shock, where he can play a shining role, is here. You put Moth in this team and take Jake out, and I'm looking at a team that I'm thinking, yep, this team can win a championship. It can. Now I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure. Like, I mean, I don't think this team's going to win a championship. I mean, actually, to be honest, they probably needed a better flex support. But... I'm frustrated, you know? And this isn't me ragging on Jake. I said this already. I don't want to be sitting here and ragging on Jake. He's good, you know? The Jake Rat is good, but I'll be honest, I reckon Pelican can probably play the Jake Rat better. I think Pelican will be a better Junkrat than Jake, and that maybe that's the disservice to Jake, but Pelican has proven. He has proven that he can do it at the highest level, you know? I don't understand. And it's that kind of thing that I'm very concerned about. And I don't want to, again, I'm not ragging on Jake here, but last season I was a bit concerned about Houston in the sense that they just elected not to develop Juby as a talent, and they elected to play Jake in that main support role most of the season. That is very concerning to me, and this is why I'm concerned about Jake playing and being a coach. Because I think that if you're still playing and you're being a coach, you have too much sway over what's going on. You know, you have captains on teams, you have shot callers on teams and whatnot. You have the big brains behind the way that you play. But Jake, I don't think that Jake is top tier at any one given position anymore. And I think that if he's trying to shoehorn himself into this roster where they could probably do with better dedicated players on the field instead of him, then this is a mistake from the Houston Outlaws. And Jake is also a face of the Houston Outlaws, as is Dante, but I think this is the wrong decision. I think Moth should be on this team. I think they should have a dedicated main support on this team, and I'm very, very worried about how this team is going to operate. I haven't even started speaking about the coaches yet. So Junkbuck is still on this team. Junkbuck is incredible. That's fine. They lose Harsha. Harsha retires. That's sad. Harsha was good. The Harsha Junkbuck connection, I thought, was pretty good. I mean, something obviously fell apart at the back end of the season, but it was good, okay? They bring in Hoshi Lee as his replacement. Hoshi Lee he coached exclusively on Toronto last season. And as I have already said in my Toronto video, I'm optimistic for Toronto, but other than that, Toronto's entire existence has been mediocre at best. They are also, I think Toronto are the other team that have never ever made playoffs. So this is an interesting coaching pickup, and I don't think this helps the situation, personally. So when I put all these elements together, when I look at the support situation, when I look at like who's actually going to play on this DPS line, I mean, okay, I do have to flag it up, right? I've said it before, I'll say it again. Piggy, great. But what if that doesn't work out? You don't want to have a main tank sat behind him, potentially, to pick up the role? What's going to happen? And then, yes, look at the early schedule as well. Something my chat has just said. San Francisco and Dallas. Again. Do we really think they're going to do it this time? I don't think so. I don't think they are. Because I'm really concerned about the way that this team is actually going to mesh together. I think it's an absolutely star-studded roster. They could do with some upgrades in positions, but otherwise it's incredible. And I believe that Pelican could single-handedly carry them through quite a lot of really difficult games where they will be lacking in certain positions. But For me, this isn't it. For me, there are too many warning signs in here that concern me. Most of them to do with Jake. I think if you take Jake off the roster, I'm happier. But right now, I don't think he worked on this roster last season. And I don't think it will work this season either. That's my thought on Houston Outlaws. I'm really sorry, Houston fans, by the way. I don't want to be a downer on you. I love the look of it, but I'm very concerned with the Jake element. I simply am. So that's the way that I'm going to be talking about it with this. That's my thoughts on Houston. And I hate beating up on a team, but they're the one I'm beating up on today. That is what it is. Either way, we'll see how we go. Right then, the third and final team today is European Hopium. There they are. European Hopium itself, the London Spitfire. Ah, beautiful. My home country. Not my favourite team, but my home country at the very least. So, what do I say about London? First of all, let's look at 2021. They won one game. Hey, they won the Bread Bowl against the Vancouver Titans. Cool, good for you. Yep, that's about it. They promoted the entirety of their British Hurricane roster, and it was a flop. And that disappointed me because I had a lot of hope. I was a big believer in that British Hurricane roster. I really was, but they just didn't perform. They were on high ping all season. We still don't know if London are going to be playing in North America this season, because Paris have just flown their entire roster out to North America and are going to be operating from there on low ping. But London haven't looked like they're doing the same yet. So, okay, that's if they're playing on 90 ping again, that's not good for them. That's simply not good for them. But let's look at what they let go of and let's look at what they keep. Okay, basically they have no expectation going to the season, which in my opinion, as I said already with another team, I think I said it with, who did I say it with? Who did I say had no expectation on them? I need to remember who I said that was with. Oh boy. Oh boy. I believe Vancouver. When I was gushing over Vancouver last week, yeah, I said that Vancouver have no expectation going on to them, so they could be really good. Spoiler alert, I think Vancouver's roster is better than this one, but let's have a look. So, Ripper leaves, Kellex leaves, Molfig leaves, Blase leaves, Hughes already left before the season started. Yeah, fair enough. Ripper and Kellex weren't it. They grinded their way in contenders, got themselves back into the league, and they just weren't it, unfortunately. But the way I'm leaning at the moment with Overwatch is that you need to bring in someone from contenders that is like young, fresh, hasn't played in the league before because they have a point to prove. That's what my recruitment philosophy would be. Molfig, I thought Molfig was good. I'll hold my hands up and say I thought Molfig was good. I thought he was fine, and when they let him go, I was quite sad. Honestly, I thought he was good. So, unlucky Molfig. Honestly, unlucky. So they did briefly let go of Hardy, right? And then they brought him back, as you can see here. He left on the same day as the rest of the roster, and then they brought him back. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Hybrid is still on a two-way. Cool. Okay. Great. And Blase, I'm sorry to say this to Blase, but Blase was washed. Blase had some good years for Boston and some okay stuff for Houston. He had moments, and he's been a veteran of the league, but unfortunately, Blase's washed. So, fair enough. They get rid of him. And here's the roster that they're running now. I think it's actually all right. Personally, I'm all right on this. I'm pretty hot on it to an extent. Right. Okay. Let's talk about the big one. Poco. They signed Poco from Philadelphia. So Poco basically only gets. He didn't even get a game in, I don't think, last season for Philadelphia because of the visa issues of him getting out to Korea. So Poco had a pretty botched season last year. But before them, 2020, when Philadelphia were at the top of their game, he was playing. No, he wasn't even playing second fiddle to Fury. He was pretty much playing alongside him in a lot of elements. Obviously, Fury came in more so for, playoffs and other games, where Philadelphia are trying desperately to win something. But otherwise, I thought Poco was holding his own. I think Poco is a really intelligent, and I also think he's a really mechanically gifted tank. And I believe that Poco will probably be able to pick up a lot of main tank roles potentially. But we'll see what happens. Either way, on the off tank at the very least, I have a lot of faith in Poco. Good pickup. They keep Shaxx and Sparker. Good. So if we go into Tracer in the same, like Tracer matters in the same way that I think that we're going to, in the way that I believe Tracer is going to be that impactful on Overwatch 2's 5v5, then if Shaxx can get back to his best, because I'm going to be honest, Shaxx had moments last year of being great, but otherwise, Shaxx has not looked like the Tracer that he has been across his entire lifespan in like the Overwatch League. He is a talented Tracer player, and everyone says he is. If he can get back to his best, I think London have a really good shot here. They bring in Backbone. Backbone comes into to sort of like pad out the DPS roster. I really like Backbone. I've watched a lot of Backbone in contenders. I didn't actually get any VODs up for you guys, but this guy's played at the top level of European contenders quite a lot. I really liked it when he was on Ex Oblivione. I thought he was really, really, really good. I also really liked it when he was on Sheer Cold. He's basically played the system really, really well. He finally gets an EU win on Falcon Esports, so I don't think he was playing as much. I think he was behind Grath and Psycho, but that's fine. You know, he gets the win that he deserves. But he's been very consistent, and he has an excellent hero pool as well. I'm a big fan of this hero pool. So look, he can play the Tracer when he needs to. He's got the Pharah in his back pocket, the Genji, the Echo. I've seen him play Doomfist and Reaper as well. He's good. I really like Backbone. I don't think he'll start over Shaxx and Sparker, but I do think he's a great player. So they bring in a new support duo as well. Provide and Admiral. Okay, so Admiral basically gets promoted from British Hurricane. Cool, that's great. That's what you want. Provide has a little bit of a dodgy history surrounding him, according to what I've read and listened to. I think maybe he said something online a few years back that wasn't so good. Same thing, almost similar to what MCD did potentially. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I heard. So you know, it's a bit of a weird pickup in terms of the PR department. But then look, if Boston are willing to give MCD another chance when he was in China and decided to say nasty things about China on stream, then you know, Provide's given another chance. That's fine. From what I hear as well, he's also kind of cracked on Flex, so that's fine. Cool. He can also play Mercy. That's good. I'm reading bits of the chat as well, and I will actually comment on this one in this video as well. I am personally not happy about MCD or Provide being given another chance. I believe that people can change, but I think in this industry where you need to be professional, I don't think that people that do that or have that kind of negative press should be given another chance, because it I think it goes to show there's too much leniency within the league to allow that to come back in. And that's just my take on it, but I'm not a massive fan of it. But either way, mechanically speaking, simply from his ability, I think that he is a pretty good pickup. I think he's a better pickup than Ripper. I do think he's better than Ripper, so that's fine. And then you get Admiral in. So Admiral has actually been pretty consistent this season on British Hurricane. He's obviously their main support, you know. Sky Ripper is now on Vancouver, ironically, but he's a pretty good Lucio player. You know, he's a pretty good little Mercy player. He doesn't light the world on fire, but he's a direct promotion. He shows that British Hurricane is still rewarding players for their talent and rewarding them for how hard they're trying. You know, so why not? Why not bring him back in? Why not give him a chance to thrive at the top level? I'm okay with this, personally. Good for Admiral. Good stuff. I don't think it lights the world on fire, but good stuff. That's how we are. And now let's talk about Hardy. I have to say, I'm a little bit concerned about how they thought, yeah, we're going to drop Hardy. Oh, wait, we need Hardy. Maybe they were going for someone else. Maybe there was another plan that they had, but they bring Hardy back. Now, I don't want to rag on Hardy either. I thought Hardy had a pretty bad year, but then, again, high ping. I think his Wrecking Ball was fine. And I'm disappointed that they didn't crush in Rush at the start of the year. But yeah, we'll see how we go. comment in my chat again saying, was Fusions busy? I mean, this is gonna sound really bad, but I didn't rate Fusions. I think Hardy's a better player than Fusions. Fusions was okay. Poor Fusions only ever really used to play Orisa anyway in his time on Boston. But yeah. So Hardy plays. Okay, cool. I think he's going to be second fiddle to Poco, especially if we're going into an off-tank meta starting with. I think we're going to start with Divas and Zaryas, and Poco can do it. So, good. Let Poco play. So, probably looking at a starting lineup of Poco, Provide, Admiral, Shaxx, and Sparker. That's good. That's pretty good. That's okay. What do you expect from this team? I don't expect this team to do jack shit. No offense to London, but I don't expect this team to do anything. I think this team will be fighting it out in that bottom 5. If they make it to one tournament, that is a glittering success. It is a fantastic success. But look at their first few matches. They've got to play Shock. Oh no. Oh no, I think that Shock are probably going to hard dominate them, and then they get to go and play Vancouver off the bat. And I also think that Vancouver are a better team. Again, I said it last week, Vancouver are a sleeper team. They're going to be ones to watch out for, and I think London are probably going to get farmed a little bit at the bottom of the league. But you know what? If I'm trying to be optimistic about the team, I do think that they've got some bright sparks. I do think that Shaxx and Sparker are great, and I think that in a DPS-centric game, I believe that they can make waves, and maybe they can push their team to bigger heights. Again, I think Poco's experience, I think he's disciplined, I think he's talented. Like, there's good stuff on this team, you know? I definitely don't think that this is going to be another one and done year for London. I don't think London are getting one win. I think they will get a good few. I think they'll get a couple, you know? I don't think they will be the worst team in the league, but I have to be honest with myself and say, do I see them, you know, being in that top 8 or being like in the competition for it? Not really. If they get there, good, but I don't think they will. But we'll see how they go. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're fantastic. And maybe they will get an actual meaningful result this season. Okay, then. And that, folks, is that. That is simply the end of that segment. So let me know if you enjoyed it. Again, that was week 3. I haven't decided who we're going to be looking at next week, but already my mind is leaning to... It's time to talk about Hangzhou. So I think I will probably be talking about Hangzhou next week, at the very least, and then there'll be 2 other NA teams in that list. But yeah, let me know what you think. Drop a like and a comment, maybe. I don't know. Potentially. Go look at the other ones that I did. Go look at the 5v5 VOD reviews. Honestly, I base a lot of my thoughts about this stuff off of what I've seen so far from the Workshop 5v5 and the dynamic and the space that leaves. And I'm really proud of them too. So yeah, and that's it. Catch you all next week. We record these live every Thursday. Come hang and stuff, and that's it. All right, cool. See ya. Goodbye.